Thanks everybody for being here, and I appreciate the chance to hear from all of you as to why, number one, we should be renovating Lawrence School, and two, what are the needs of the Lawrence School in the renovation. So just to introduce everybody, James Rice-Stahl here from Next Level, who's done a lot of work with us in the district. It was the OPM on our T-ticket roof building, T-ticket roof project, and is also going to be the OPM for the North Falmouth roof project as well. Steve Habeeb and Tom McLeod, who come from Habeeb Associates, who are our architects, and they've been hired to do a building assessment on the Lawrence School to help us with the MSBA application. And then from Lawrence, we have Tom Bushy, who's the principal of Lawrence, and Don Drew is the lead custodian for the district as well as for the building. So we really appreciate everybody's time here. And the reason why we're doing this filming is really to give the public an understanding of the Lawrence building, its history as a school in Falmouth, as well as the underlying challenges of a building that was built in 1950. So there's a lot of work to be done here. But first, Tom, if I can ask you, if you could just provide us some background, some history to the building, and what you find from this building and its context of its major role in the Falmouth school system. So if I could turn it over to you for a few minutes.
So the Lawrence School was built in the early 50s, opened up in 1953 as the high school for Falmouth, and it remained the high school until 1973 when Falmouth High School was opened up in its current location. And at that time, Lawrence transitioned to a junior high school, and it's been the junior high school since. It's had a rich history of being one of the staples of Falmouth Public Schools for years. There's a deep community connection, and we're hoping to make sure that it remains that way.
Right, thanks, Tom. So the building, it has a rich history. It's probably one of the prettiest buildings on the Falmouth Public School campus. In my view, it's sort of the most collegiate building of the campus. But being built in 1950s, it has a lot of challenges to it. And Don, maybe if you could just set a picture for us before we ask Steve and Tom to jump in. If you could, what are the challenges you see as lead custodian of a building such as this?
We run into electrical issues, plumbing issues, sewer issues, steam issues, pretty much every day now. There's always something that's, and it gets more challenging to try and repair, to get the parts to repair and to access what we need to access, where the locations of the pipes are, behind walls, wires in concrete walls, in floors. So those are the challenges, the everyday challenges.
All of this is essentially the old equipment, the equipment that was the original equipment to the building. Is that correct?
Correct. I've had contractors come in here that now contractors are younger than the building, and are not that they've seen some of this equipment, can't get parts for some of the equipment, and have never worked on some of the equipment that's like this.
So the plumbing is original. Much of the electricity is original. In the panel behind you is
Original.
Original.
Yes.
All right. So, in that context, so the building is sort of battling in need of renovation. It's reached its end useful life as a building. And so we're now applying to the MSBA for help in renovating this building. And I want to turn it over to James and Steve, if you could just, tell us about the MSBA process and tell us what it is that the Mass School Building Authority looks for in a building to help a town renovate that building. Maybe James, if you want to start off.
Yeah, sure thing, Paul. Yeah, now Massachusetts has a state program run by the Massachusetts School Building Authority, where it's basically a grant reimbursement program that supports all the school districts in the state. The way you become a part of this program is to apply what's called a statement of interest. They have a yearly statement of interest filing period, and we're just about on the cusp of that ending here. But you apply where you can if your school is no longer seems to be meeting its educational mission, or the facilities are outdated, you apply and the MSBA will reimburse, depending on your town or city's economic factors, a certain portion of the costs that it costs to build a school. A lot of the things they look into are, what's the age of the building, and in this case, a lot of our last projects that we've seen are 1970s that are getting accepted and being replaced and or renovated, and so 1950s we feel good that it would be a good candidate. But other things they look at is the amount of space per student, the current and projected enrollments, is enrollments increasing, decreasing, and what we've talked about here, the condition of what he was calling the equipment, but we call those the building systems, the electrical system in the building, the plumbing system, the fire protection, and heating, the heating systems. And for us, that at Lawrence, that seems to be the most critical, because it's behind the walls, it's hidden, and therefore it's hard to get to. But then they also look at the general environment of the building, and as I mentioned, its general appropriateness of the building to meet the educational mission.
Okay, so, we have, in a few days, we'll be filing, as James has mentioned, the statement of interest, or in layman's terms, an application for the renovation of the building. And part of that process is doing a building assessment. So we hire the experts to come in and take a look at this building. And Steve and Tom, maybe you guys can walk us through the process itself of the building assessment and how you came about doing it.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Well, the assessment really starts with our gathering all the documents on the building, all of the original construction drawings, the other elements, reports that could have been done over the years, things like the O'Hara report, having the in-depth conversations with Dawn and others in the school department who have experienced some of the issues that they've experienced over the years. And then we go in with our team and we look at the building really from roof down through the basement, inside and outside, looking at all of the systems, looking at the general construction, the structural system, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, all of the elements of the building, including things like, clock systems and security systems, and really getting an understanding of what's there now and what it would take to bring those back to a standard whereby the school department could continue to use this building, for 20, 30 years down the road. So we look at replacement of major systems. We look at how old the individual systems are, whether they have exceeded their life expectancy. And if so, we then include those in the deficiency list and budget for their replacement. So that's the process, Paul, that we used over a period of months on the Lawrence building.
Steve, you just mentioned the timing on this. Are we extending the life under a full renovation? What would you expect? Would it be 25 years? Would it be 50 years? Would it be another 70 years? What would it be versus, say, building a new building?
Well, if a comprehensive renovation were done, Paul, such that, and I'm saying comprehensive where, those piping systems and things that James and Don mentioned that are behind walls and underfloor, if those are replaced and the building is reconstructed, we design it typically for a 50-year life. Now, that doesn't mean that all systems are going to last 50 years.
Right.
Just as if you owned a vehicle, you don't expect the tires to last the full life of the car. But the building itself, we would design the systems and the building renovation such that it's looking at a 50-year cycle.
So before we get into the real specifics of this, Steve, I remember when you first came down and what were your initial impressions of this building when you walked into it the first time and we walked and did a tour of the building?
Well, it's an attractive building, but it struck me as being a high school, an old high school, a high school that was built in the 50s. The size of the classrooms is such that they were sized for what you would size typically for a high school. It did not appear to me to be, and it is not configured for a team teaching middle school, but it's a beautiful building. I mean, it's very attractive from the outside.
And do you think, do you think this is worthy to work from as your base? Or if you think about building a new building, do you think this is a worthwhile salvageable project or?
I do think so. And one of the things that, some of the benefits that the town would receive versus a new building are the added spaces that go beyond what the MSBA would consider sharing for middle school. The auditorium, for instance, they would not share, you would not be able to have that auditorium. The size of the gymnasium would not be shared to that extent. So there are some extra spaces in the building that you can achieve if you renovate this building and use it in that fashion.
So just so us laymen understand, so essentially when you say share with the MSBA wouldn't subsidize the auditorium as it exists today, or if we would renovate, we would try to replicate the school and build a new school, having a 7,000 square foot auditorium, they wouldn't subsidize that building of that auditorium. The town would have to pay for that on its own. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
And James has had even more workings as an owner's project manager directly with the MSBA, so he might be able to share more information on that. I'm not sure, James.
Yeah, Steve, that's absolutely right. Yeah, Paul, with the MSBA works, they just if you're there are some strings attached, if you will, to get to access their funding, and they don't think that an auditorium is necessarily should be a part of a middle school. So that's not part of their program. So as Steve was mentioning, us renovating would allow us to keep it as a space, or put differently, that would be a detraction if we were to try to replace the Lawrence School with the brand new school, is that we would not be allowed, at least to be as part of this project, to include an auditorium.
All right, I mean, I think those points are important for the general public to understand. And the auditorium use here goes well beyond what the school does for its own school-based programs. It's a functional part of the town. Just last night, the town meeting was held here with, you know, many hundreds of individuals, town meeting members participating in the budgetary discussions for the town. So, and that happens twice a year here, as well as there's many outside groups that come in and use the auditorium for their own performances. And Tom or Don, is there, you know, can you give a sense of the usage of the space in the auditorium, for example, and the gym by outside groups?
So the auditorium is used for dance recitals, Christmas time, the Nutcracker concerts, town meeting, like you said. The gym is used just about December, late November, all the way to February or March for basketball, travel basketball, both Saturdays and Sundays.
Okay, so it's pretty,
And
and
every night.
you have a summer program that is here as well, that
Yeah.
doesn't use the gym. All right. All right, so let me go back to Steve and Tom, and maybe you could just walk us through the actual assessment. What are some of the things that you have found, and what the cost might be to do the renovation, or part of the renovation, I should say.
Tom, you want to handle this piece?
Yes, yeah, I can run through, well, really some of the basic elements are, and again, I'll be repeating some of the things that Don said, but basically some of our major findings go back to the major distribution systems, plumbing, heating, electrical. They're all 75-year-old systems at this point. And the basic school building, the original building is 117,400 square feet, and the addition in 1996 was another 14,800 square feet. So we're totaling 132,200 square feet. If you run through the building itself, again, it's basically a combination of structural steel and wood framing. There are a number of issues as far as we're looking at a mixed roofing system, and that some of the roof is asphalt shingles, some is EPDM. The windows, and actually this is one of the pluses on the exterior of the building. The windows most of the windows have been replaced with a thermally broken aluminum frame window. So that's a plus as far as the exterior of the building and in keeping the building itself. The mechanical systems, as I said before, we have domestic water and fire protection systems, gas water heaters. The building is fully sprinklered. We are running gas boilers in this case, and I believe the boilers are, if I remember correctly, about 10 or 12 years old. But they will be getting near the end of their useful life as we move forward with this process. And again, we do have a decent electrical service coming into the building. So I mean, the overall building, I hate to refer to it as the bones of the building, but I mean, the basic building itself is very sound. As Don had mentioned, though, the big issue that we're running into is that these different distribution systems, whether it be plumbing, heating, electrical, are 75 years old. And, you know, due to minerals in the water, that helps create some corrosion in the piping. So you're dealing with pinhole leaks that could be occurring anywhere within the system. It could be occurring within walls. Again, it's very complicated, not a simple task to chase down where the problem is and then be corrected. And you know, I hate to bring up the specter of mold, but you know, wherever there's a water leak, there's a possibility of mold growth. So these are some of the issues that you know, you'd like to catch as soon as possible. You want to get those issues resolved now so that they don't become much bigger issues, so they don't become health issues.
You divided up in your analysis you know, the evaluation into three scopes. Scope 1 was immediately necessary dash critical. Scope 2 was necessary, not yet critical, and scope 3 was recommended. Can you walk us through what you found that was immediately necessary and critical? You mentioned probably the same items, but plumbing, electrical, etc.
Well, those are exactly the items that we're going to be talking about, because again, those are, unfortunately, those are the, I'll say the big ticket items. Those are some of the more expensive items. And again, those are the things that need the most in need, or have the greatest need, or the most immediate need for replacement. Yeah, I'm just looking at the mechanical aspect of RFCA. We're looking at, you know, the elevator needs work. That's a scope 1 item. The plumbing system.
And can I just stop you there, Tom, for a moment?
Sure.
But when you mention the elevator, most buildings have 2 elevators. Is that not correct? This is only one elevator servicing 500 roughly students. If we have a problem with that elevator, then we have a problem with you know, mobility between floors here. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I mean, any student that has any accessibility issues really can't move through the building if that elevator is not functional. There's no good way for them to access the other floors of the building. And again, that elevator was put in I've got it listed as 1980. So, I mean, we're looking at a 45-year-old elevator.
Yeah. So even in repairing that elevator or replacing it, there's still a need for another elevator as a backup to the single elevator.
Exactly. I mean, this would be a great opportunity to add a second elevator. So you have that, backup. So you have those facilities available. But I mean, going through the scope 1 items that really that again are having immediate issues with right now. The plumbing system. The fire protection system. Again, like I say, that came in 1961. So again, it was very forward thinking for how to put a fire protection system in the school at that point in time. But it's an old system at this point. The steam piping, the fan coil units in the classrooms. You know, all of these items by and large, go back to the original construction. Let me just run through the unit ventilators. And that there are a couple of items as far as things that are not in the school at the moment, or I'll say in the special needs classrooms, there's a need for air conditioning. And at the moment, simple portable units are being used. They're not terribly efficient, and they really they're not going to do a good job for the classroom. They may be serving the need on a temporary basis. But again, there is a need in those locations for air conditioning, for better, more highly developed temperature control. Again, the gymnasium heating system goes back to 1950. A lot of the rooftop equipment, rooftop fans and that are just old pieces of equipment. So what we were seeing is that the school is well maintained, but there's a point where a number of these systems just wear out. Like Steve was commenting, if you're driving, your car is not going to go 100,000 miles on the same set of tires. You're going to have to do maintenance, and at some point in time, you're going to have to do major maintenance, and that's where we are at this point. So you can keep putting Band-Aids. Again, as Don was saying, he's constantly fixing leaks. He's constantly fighting with problems that, again, that also takes away from some of the other things that he could do in the school, as far as it's taking people away from maintenance. And again, if you're calling in outside contractors, that's money being spent on just repairs. That's going to be an ongoing issue.
So, Tom and Steve, in your opinion, how long can you wait renovating a building of this age? Do we have 5 years to go? Do we have 10 years to go? Do we have 15 years to go? Or, the MSBA process itself is an 8-year process if we're accepted into the program this year. But if we didn't apply, if we decided to defer, the application process for several years, what position could the building be in?
Well, I can't predict, Paul, but given what we've seen and given what Dawn's running into, if a major system were to go, it could shut the building down, and you would have to address it, immediately. If there was a major, a really major steam leak, or multiple steam leaks, or multiple water leaks, or any of the major building systems that that suddenly gave out, you'd be out of business until you fixed it.
And at that point, we would be fixing it on our own.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Under
so
emergency conditions, yeah.
Yeah, so the MSBA, we'd be outside of the MSBA process, would be picking up 100% of the tab on that.
Yes, and
repair.
figuring out where the students go,
Yeah.
potentially.
So, if for the person that may be seeing this video, so, the concept of delay is in my view, rolling the dice is, both financially, in terms of getting help with renovating this building, but also in the continuity of the building. Is that correct?
Yeah, you'd be rolling the dice, yeah. I think every year you go by, you're rolling the dice. And I know that you've had issues come up in the past and you've done, emergency repairs, but maybe they haven't been of a catastrophic nature, but they could be.
Okay. All right, so I mean, Tom, you've made it clear about scope one. Those are the things that we've been talking about to the community about the plumbing, the electrical, some of the heating components, and so on. What about scope two? What are the issues that you see that aren't as critical, but are still needed?
Excuse me, I hope that that's making too much background noise. Looking at scope two, again, there are some issues as far as, again, I'm looking at the electrical systems for that matter. The computer networking system and computer technology system in the school is old. Now, again, it doesn't need to be replaced immediately, but again, it's dated. That's something that, again, more and more students, everybody's on a laptop at this point, and the system just isn't designed for that. The security system in the school, there's a security system now, but it could be updated and expanded. The generator could be replaced, or by that, by the time scope two, again, that's the 5-year range. By then it'll be, at its useful life. So, and that's something that could be replaced. The stage lighting and controls are original to that building. So again, there's much more efficient systems. There are much better systems. Again, these are things that would be improvements to the school, but are not, I don't want to say life or death issues, but they're not as critical as some of the things we discussed in scope one as far as plumbing and HVAC.
And how about the roof? Where would the roof fall in on that?
Perhaps another way to look at it, Paul, is once you cross the threshold of needing to replace the systems that we were talking about, the electrical, the mechanical, those things that are behind the walls. I mean, to repair those and to replace those, it's so intrusive. It would make the most efficient or economic sense. If you have to take care of those, then all the others that you're mentioning would follow to be a part of the project. To put it differently, if you decided not to take on replacing the electrical, mechanical, and plumbing systems, rolling the dice, but you want to take care of the roof, well, now you put a new roof on the cafeteria, that's going to last 30 years, but you still don't, your electrical and your plumbing and your HVAC is still 70 plus years old and ready for failure at any given moment. And so it's almost a question of, we're getting to where are we throwing good money after bad? We can repair the roof, but then, what happens when we have to really update the entire, building systems, those internal systems for the school? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And I think, as you said, in order to access some of the real problematic areas like plumbing, like electrical, you're going to be tearing into walls and so on, and to address issues such as HVAC. I mean, we don't have air conditioning in this school, and a modern day junior high school would be having air conditioning in it. And this building gets pretty warm. Those of us are sitting here filming this thing are starting to sweat to begin with.
Yeah, I could
But it's,
fix that.
yeah, We'll splice that out, but you know, my point is that, yeah, I mean, you need to do enough work to replace these systems that you might as well do the entire building while you're at it.
Right.
And Tom, Tom Bushy, what are the issues that the students find with the building?
So I can address it best probably by talking about some of the pros first. Some of the things that we like about the building, which speak to you know, a renovation of this current space, and that's the layout is really functional of the building. Some rooms and stuff need to be moved around to be more conducive to a team structure, like Stephen was talking about before. But the building's proximity to town is really helpful. We are able to take walking trips, some exciting educational and team building outings, if you will, you know, without having to procure transportation. So the location of the building is great. Some of the challenges, you know, I would say it's been mentioned here about the heat. And when we arrived back to school, it is very warm when we get back from the summer, and it gets very warm towards the end of the school year. And then over the course of the winter, we do hear some complaints, if you will, about the heating disbursement. And you know, that my understanding is that those are the types of things that are going to make the building more comfortable for the kids, which of course makes it more comfortable with staff members, and just provides just an overall better learning experience for the students, and just a you know, more conducive space for teaching and growing. Our lockers could be improved. You know, I could go on with more details if you'd like. I don't want to go out of order here though, but you know, we could modernize the styling in the building with some paint to bring us in line with the, you know, the district's Falmouth colors, maroon, gray, and white. We've had those conversations. It would be a good time to do that with a renovation. But Paul, I could keep going on and talk about things for the kids, like what the kids say, but I don't know how much time or how detailed you want me to get into it.
Thanks, Tom. You know, the more the merrier, I think, because I think, you know, we're doing this for the kids, and it's really good to get their input into what they see and how proud they are of the building, and what they, you know, what they think needs improvement. You know, in terms of classrooms, you know, we have the building assessment looks at the core of the building. It doesn't look at the classroom reconfiguration. But Tom, maybe you speak to, you know, how the classrooms restrict, you know, what a modern junior high school would look like today.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, again, speaking from an instructional viewpoint, and it's been mentioned in this meeting today, we rely more on technology. So charging stations for devices, electrical outlets, and Wi-Fi infrastructure are really important to us. And the age of the building is not always conducive to streamlining those processes for those instructional resources. You know, but also, of course, we don't rely solely on tech. The kids, you know, we need, you know, updated furniture and spaces to provide for flexible seating arrangements and group work. The room for teachers to move about the classroom to check in with students or small groups. And this differs from traditional classroom structures where you might imagine an older building with the desks in rows and the teacher doing the instruction from in front of the classroom. Just education looks differently now than it did in the 50s and 60s. And you know, in my conversations with Steve and James, we talked about ways to improve upon that. Also, you know, since the original construction of the building, there's been extensive and necessary special education services have been introduced and developed over time. And some of those changes there are impactful when it comes to classrooms for substantially separate programs or spaces for small group testing that's needed on an ongoing basis. And our current layout does not always meet those needs. And you know, having the ability to work with Steve, James, and Tom to talk about, you know, what we feel is a you know, necessary components or renovation is going to be really exciting to talk about ways to continue to support this school and our student body.
You know, I was struck when we went through the counting exercise for classrooms, Tom and I, you know, and, you know, for example, we have only 9 classrooms that are greater than 850 square feet in size. And 5 of which are used as labs, and only 4 are used as general education. I'm just going to walk people through these numbers for example. So again, 9 classrooms are over 850 square feet of size. James and Steve, can you just tell us what the minimum classroom size is that the MSBA would view if you were building a new building today for a junior high school?
Yeah, it would be 850 square feet.
Okay, so 850 square feet, we have 9 of them, not the majority. So 9 out of 50 classrooms, 14 classrooms are between 701 and 849 square feet. 19 classrooms are between 551 to 700 square feet, and 8 classrooms are 550 square feet or less in size. And I think, Tom, at one point you mentioned that your average size classroom is in the mid 600s. Is that right? If you did this?
Yeah, when we did that, yeah, the averages. But if I can add another, Paul, go ahead. Sorry.
No, please continue.
No, I was just going to add about with the team structure. One of the key components is you know, geographical proximity to similar teachers on the team. You know, to preserve that school within a school feel. And you know, since the building was not designed with that in mind, there are times where we're underutilizing space in an effort to maybe keep some special ed students in the same area as the team, without having a classroom that's appropriately sized. We may be having a small group scenario in a classroom that's big enough for a full 25 student class. And with the you know, a redesign with a team structure in mind at its foundation, would be better able to you know, provide a, you know, more optimal experience.
So, and just for the layman's, the outsider hearing this, Tom, can you just tell us what a team structure is? Is this essentially taking the 6th grade and creating 2 groups of 6th graders into 2 teams, in essence?
Well, I could speak for Lawrence's, and it's grades 7 and 8, and we do have 2 teams per grade, with each team having a a core academic teacher, math, science, history, ELA, a special educator, and a teaching assistant on that one team. And the students on that team have those teachers in common. This is a educational philosophy that's we consider foundational. It is time tested and data supported to provide students with a safer and impactful educational experience where the team teachers are able to connect with the students in common to talk about ways to best support them academically, socially and emotionally, and then with the other services of guidance counselors tagging into team meetings, which occur periodically, are scheduled and built into the schedule. And we believe in it, and we've seen its success, and we hope to continue that.
So, and part of the challenge of that team structure today in this building, my understanding is that the science labs are separated. Is that correct?
Mhm.
That the science labs are all located on one wing of the building?
Yep, that is correct. That the layout of the building had more of a high school layout where if you walk into Falmouth High School, you might walk down a wing that is all ELA teachers, or the history teachers are all clustered in one wing. But with a team structure, that's not ideal, because you want the teachers that are bound by the team relationship to be in closer proximity to each other. So in this case, the kids have to travel to get to their science labs.
And that just takes up a lot of time. I mean, we could, in a modern building, the old philosophy of keeping the science lab in one place was because you were sharing all the piping, the gas pipes, et cetera, in one wing of the building. Is that for the architects and
Well,
Yeah.
it was,
that might,
yeah, well, it was really, it's just it's a different educational philosophy, how most high schools are structured. So you have departments, and those teachers that all teach the science or teach math or instruct language arts or foreign languages, or they work together. And so the traditional high school arrangement is to cluster those by departments, and they share equipment. It's a very different educational philosophy than the team teaching concept at a middle school, where you have 4 or 5 teachers for each team, and they get to know each and every student, and they know if one student is not performing to the level where they could be, because they're talking amongst teachers are talking amongst each other. And consequently, that middle school, those ages, it's been shown, and this middle school educational philosophy has been really been happening as long as I've been in this industry, which is almost 50 years. This is this is what is done in the middle school level as the best teaching process for students.
And I can second that, Paul. Just even on the other MSBA projects, on the other school districts that I've worked with and been a part of, where they're looking at their educational plan, and each and every one is doing exactly what Tom Bushy is mentioning. That it's all project team based, and and these teams. So this is the way that the Massachusetts is wanting, even in the reviews of the submissions that we give to the MSBA. They keep coming back with, yes, can we have more project-based learning? Can we have more team-based learning? And versus the traditional, we'll call it, with the each wing was by department. So,
Mhm.
and as we're mentioning, yeah, this building it was designed by department. It wasn't designed to be by team, and that does have an impact on, you know, that's where the physicality of the building and its limitations impacts how we can teach, or how more effectively teach.
Okay, as a layman, can I try to just sum this up in my mind but if I think about a high school or college campus, and I think about the departmental structure that you see, where you go to a separate building, for example, for science, or separate building for history, and so on, or department in the high school level. But the critical difference is that the maturity, the social development, the behavioral development of a junior high school or classes, whether they be 7 or 8 or 6, 7, and 8, are very different. And so having these teachers more closely as a group across disciplines, track the students, understand how they're performing across multiple topics, that is of great need, of value. Am I stating that, Tom Bushy, or is that?
Yep. Yeah. And also the student experience, as far as the connections that they build with similar teachers, and the connections that they build with their peers over the course of the year by being in, however many number of classes with the same groups of students, going on the same field trips, taking lunch together, doing team building exercises. It's all part of the middle and junior high school experience when you have a team structure.
So it just to emphasize for people that may be listening, is that we're taking what was built as a high school and renovating that into a modern day junior high school. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
well, we've been operating as a junior high school in a building that was designed as a high school, in my opinion, with success for quite a long time. But in this community, we want to continue to get better and continue to preserve the things that are important to the town, and the emotional connection that people may have historically with this school building. So it makes sense to try to renovate and improve the experience that we already think is really outstanding.
All right. So if I could come back to Tom McLeod and to Steve Habeeb, you put together comprehensive assessment of this building, of the core components of this building. You also mentioned a cost factor in here about the renovation. And I just want to address that, have you guys address that, and what it does include and what it doesn't include, importantly. So maybe if Steve or Tom, if you could take a.
Sure, absolutely. Well, Paul, what it includes are the renovations of the existing systems, the existing building systems, and replacement of the systems that are outdated throughout the building, as well as replacement of the roof, replacement of, the mechanical systems, electrical systems. It does include some replacement of elements within some classrooms in terms of casework and science storage elements. It does not include reconfiguration of the interior in order to set the school up to operate as a team teaching middle school. It does not include that. That's the factor that would get incorporated into the comprehensive design, and that would then be estimated following that design work.
Right. To be fair to Steve, Habeeb, and Tom, that's will be studied in detail as part if accepted into the MSBA program, if and when accepted into the MSBA program. They will look at not only how they can, upgrade the physical building, but then also how could it better or best meet the educational mission of the school, and what that would look like and what its associated costs would look like. And that process will all be transparent. There will be community forums where we would present this information to the town, so that they are aware of the options that are getting discussed and designed and the associated costs, and so that everyone will know what the potential options are.
And one of those options that the MSBA does ask you to look at, if I'm correct,
It can
is
be
a
it can be
new
all the
building.
way. Yep, it can all be all the way from just upgrading. So bringing this existing building, from a code perspective. If you just had to meet today's code to make this building safe, or according to today's, that's the purpose of the codes, is to make it safe, structurally, electrically, mechanically, fire protection wise. To that minimum level, to a renovation of the building, where we're now moving walls to see how we can better educate the students with different spaces within the exterior structure, to maybe an addition if that was so desired, all the way to, and then the last option of a completely brand new building. So just when you're accepted into the MSBA program, you're required to study all those options, so that that district, that town, can figure out what might be in their best interest that they want to do going forward.
Okay, so this report is really the starting point.
That's right.
The major items, the starting point. And when we
That's to
look
let
at,
the MSBA know what are the issues with the current building, or what's the status of the current building.
and the figure here was mentioned in 2032 dollars, not today's dollars.
Right.
But if all of this work was completed, and again, this does not include the room reconfiguration at the building, but it would be just about $100 million in 2032 dollars, not today's dollars. Is that correct? But
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
All right. And so, and just to emphasize that's only part of the cost of the renovation of this building. The key components that we started off discussing. Is that correct? And I also want to say there are components of this building that were done in recent history. And Don, maybe you can tell us that the windows were done in 2014 and 2015.
Yeah.
Okay. And when were and that was an MSBA project as well.
Correct.
And when were the boilers were done in
16.
in 60?
16.
Okay, so there has been some work and Tom, not all of these have to be replaced, right?
That's correct. And one of the things I was saying is that, if we're looking at, 2032, by the time you hit that point, yes, the boilers would most likely need to be replaced again, that they're going to be, near their the end of their useful life. So again, that's looking forward. So even if you just maintain this building, you're still looking at some major costs down the road. I mean, those things are just unavoidable.
And on the other hand, the windows that were replaced, and that's what we were thinking of keeping, the exterior of the building, those would not in 2032. They still have more life at that point. They would not be in need of replacement.
Yeah. So one other aspect of the building that we haven't talked about is the security of the building, particularly the entranceway. And when the students enter the main door today, there is not a double set of doors with a small atrium vestibule separating them. You know, there is essentially one door opens, and the students immediately have you know, a choice of going up or down the stairs. And that's before you reach the front office. Tom, can you tell us about what you want from a modern day security entrance to this building?
Yeah, I mean, precisely what you just mentioned, Paul. Our office staff is diligent in, you know, who they let in the building, of course, but we have to rely on the established practice of folks coming into the building and, you know, walking straight from the foyer into the main corridor, taking a right, and then walking, you know, 10 yards down the hall before they get to the main office. And you know, this is a practice that it, you know, like I said, is established and folks do it, but occasionally someone will not pay attention and either go up or down the stairs or take a left. And we have to rely on calling for admin on the radio to track someone down or look at the video cameras to make sure that, you know, everything is okay and the person's getting redirected to the office. You know, we also have you know, we also have a scenario where the main entrance is not accessible. If someone with mobility issues arrives to the school building as a guest, they have to enter through one of the side doors where we have ramps. That's something that we would want to take into consideration when looking at the main entryway of the building as well.
So one of the possibilities here for this building is to actually somewhat elongate that front entrance, push it further towards the sidewalk, level it towards the street as well, and you'd have a much more controlled entrance at that point. And you know, and your sort of main office level could be in that extension. But that would be a great opportunity to do now under a renovation that we couldn't as a singular project do if we were trying to fund this on our own.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that the building is safe and secure. We feel safe here in this space, but we could make an improvement, like you just mentioned, Paul. So I just wanted to make sure that people weren't feeling like, you know, we don't feel safe here to learn as a school community.
Right.
Well, can I add again, it goes back to the age of the school, because when the school was built, security, the way we think of it today, was a non-issue.
Yeah.
And the whole concept was to move the students within the building as quickly as possible, so that coming in the front door and being able to go directly to the lower level, down a set of stairs, or directly to the upper level, up a set of stairs, was an ideal design solution at the time. Times have changed. So to develop a controlled vestibule area so that, again, people can come into a point and they're at meeting locked doors at that point, but now they have an intercom system to the office, and then the office has control about basically letting people into the building. Unfortunately, I mean, we're talking to a number of schools that have this same issue. And again, trying to develop just a form of control of who's coming and going from the building is just critical in today's environment.
So I'd like to I just want to poll all of you and you know, as you think of the options of whether we renovate this building or we build a new building. I just what is your professional recommendation, seeing where the building is today? And maybe I can start with Tom, then James and Steve.
If you don't mind, I'll start off. I mean, I think, you know, the exterior, the building itself is in good shape. Yes, and looking at the FCA, you know, the roofing work is in scope 1. We have some of the repair work to the exterior of the building in scope 2 and 3, and it's, you know, there's minor repointing to do. There's some minor soffit repair work to do, but the work to the exterior of the building, looking at the big picture, is really fairly minimal or very secondary to the work that needs to be done inside. And to update the interior and renovate the interior would be more cost effective, I believe, than building a new building. And it would give you the opportunity to meet the students' needs better.
Yeah,
And-
I think there absolutely would be a lower cost to renovate this particular building. And given what I've heard and seen, and the historic value of it to the town, the location, it makes sense in my mind to head in that direction. Of course, that will all be examined during the initial process once you're accepted into the MSBA core program.
And I think that,
James?
yeah, no, thank you, Paul. And I think that's a great segue, Steve. Thank you. You know, we have our thoughts, but I think it puts it back that, and this is good, that at least from our professional opinions, that the school is an excellent candidate to be renovated. We've dealt with other schools where, you know, we've really recommended it would probably be best to start from scratch, you know, and start new. It's good that this one still has a lot of, with some modifications, it still has a lot of life left to it, you know, and we appreciate that. Taking into account the MSBA's program and what their requirements are, you know, as we mentioned before, the fact that it has the auditorium, that's another added plus, a bonus. I imagine that the size of the gym compared to what a typical middle school gym has, you know, we might be gaining on that front as well. You know, we're going to renovate the gym, but you know, the size of it, if it were new, might be a little bit smaller. So, but at any case, all this is, again, I would just want to reiterate, while we may think it is a good candidate, which is great for the district, it's really the district's choice, you know, and if they want to renovate or if they want a new school. But if once accepted into the MSBA program, all that information will be given to the district so that, you know, they can decide which direction they want to head in.
So let me ask a couple more questions on this. And let me, you know, for Steve and Tom, you know, as let's assume we approach the path now of renovation and the construction is underway. What is the likelihood of a big surprise? A surprise that fundamentally shapes the overall cost of this project. And causes
I don't, I mean, if the preliminary work is done to the extent that it should be, those shouldn't exist, because there would be some destructive demolition that would be occurring, and you'd be talking about a very major renovation that would be redesigning the interior of that building. And if the work up front is done, obviously there with any construction project, there can be changes. Proportionally, I can't predict Paul, I wish I could give you a straight, clear, this is it answer.
Okay, understand. But if we would, are we confident about what we've seen so far? I mean,
Yes, yes. But, you know, there will be a lot of, as I said, a lot of investigative work. Looking at things such as seismic design requirements and, you know, other elements that would be costly. I think those can be incorporated. They need to be thought through. They need to be studied and assessed. And there, those elements fall under that phase when you're accepted into the MSBA's core program. And there's a reason why you pay a lot of money for that feasibility study phase, as James can attest, because those elements need to be fleshed out in a very comprehensive fashion.
so I think, and what I'm getting to, and I think for Falmouth residents, one of their reference points is the renovation of the high school, which went over budget by a substantial amount. It took a long time to complete. There were a number of issues. How does the process today differ from a project that was in the early 2000s at the high school? What is it about the MSBA process or just the normal construction process we now see ourselves in would help protect for that?
That's a great question, because I am familiar with the Falmouth High School renovation project from its initiation and its initial study, which was reviewed in September of 2001. It's a very different process. The study phase that's done, the schematic study and schematic design phase that's done and required to be done by the MSBA now is a totally different animal. It's a very robust, comprehensive assessment where a lot of individuals and companies that focus on design and construction review the concepts. That was not done in 2001 when it was determined, the school committee decided to move forward with the renovation of the Falmouth High School. There was one design firm that did the initial evaluation and schematic design. There was a firm retained to review that recommended at the time not to move forward with that particular design, but it was determined that that was the design that was desired. And I don't believe there was the thoroughness during that early phase that is required now by MSBA.
I think if you've hit it just right, Steve, it's we almost need to go back to the definition of schematic design. And on normal construction projects, schematic design is really it's the general ideas locked down. But with an MSBA schematic design, it is far more thorough. And if you can imagine, for the district's point of view, this is the time at the end of schematic design where we are agreeing with the MSBA. We're coming up with a cost estimate that we're going to give to the MSBA at the end of schematic design, and they're going to agree to that cost and what their reimbursement share is going to look like based on that cost. So the trickle down effect on that is we, as your advisors and your designers, we make sure at that point that we try not to go over that budget, because anything else will above and beyond that cost is going to be on the 100% on the district versus shared with the MSBA. So when we get to the end of schematic design and on an MSBA project, we make sure every nook and cranny is looked under. And the MSBA kind of requires that too. They don't allow you to very little movement of walls and locations like this. If this is where you're saying the auditorium is, then it's going to be there throughout the design. You can't be switching it and moving it around anymore, because that's cost that they weren't anticipating. So that's what Steve said. It's a much more thorough process than what we typically attribute to a non-MSBA project at schematic design. It's really farther along, and again, a lot of it is based on cost.
All right, I think, well, number one, let me thank you all for taking out an afternoon here to talk to us. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity for the community to hear your voice and opinions as well. And at this point, I think we're gonna call it a wrap, and we'll catch up with you later on. Talk to you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
On the back side of this wall, there's a bathroom. The pipes are behind this wall. We had a leak. 2 or 3 days later, the water started coming out. We had to remove this whole bank of lockers to get into repair it.
So the pipes are actually going up the cinder block.
Between the cinder block wall and the cinder block wall, yes. And so there's a 2-foot cavity. I could not fit in that hole.
Oh,
So the plumber had us take this whole unit out. We gave him access, but he couldn't fit in. You see the distance? See the pipes? That white one was leaking. And he filled in that inside and it didn't come out until finally it was deep enough to drip down the pipe and into the...
so you can't see this happening in real time.
No.
You have to wait for it,
to
for
happen.
the water to find its way
Correct.
out.
And that's true throughout this building. A lot of the plumbing is behind walls. You know, something simple like a drippy pipe you can deal with, but you don't see any of this. This is true on every bathroom. There's a brick wall on the other side of every bathroom.
And so you have a girls' bathroom here, you have
One above,
one above, you have a
boys and
boys'
boys,
bathroom, and the
two
other side of the
downstairs.
building. Okay.
So when the plumber arrived, we had a leak behind the wall. We didn't know where. We took out the back of the locker and we sent in the skinniest guy he had working for. When he got in there, he realized there were multiple leaks. So we had to remove the whole bank of lockers to...
So all of these 3 leaks occurred at the same time, or is it?
Well, when he found one and patched it, that's when
It
they just
started causing-
Yeah. So at that point, he said, we've got to replace the pipe. You could not get a 10-foot length of pipe in this locker. So you had to take them out,
The whole locker.
the whole locker out.
And is that fairly common?
No, all over the school.
All
Like
over.
shut-offs behind the Don't film that. But yeah, I got the locker where the actual shut-off is in the back of a locker. They cut off, not your shut-off. Another thing I'd like to show you, the leak I told you about on the roof.
Yeah.
This wire is for the pump that I have to run when it rains because the drain can't keep up with the water. The water can come up to my waist.
This is the original design
Original roof,
drain
yeah.
on the roof.
There's
It does not handle even a normal rainy day.
No rain, or if someone hits a foul ball, the ball will go in the drain. Block the drain.
Block the drain.
Leaves, I've got it constantly clean.
Yeah.
So
And so this is just the extension cord for the
yes, I
pump.
need it, right.
Oh, wow. Talk to me about this roof here that's over the cafeteria and the wood shop area. But
As you can see, how the water's pooling, the insulation underneath has gotten wet and it's dried out and it's heaved and it's forcing the insulation underneath to raise, which is affecting the drainage of the roof. That spot you see there, there's more along the way because the insulation is now swollen and it's creating pockets.
Right. So the insulation underneath gets wet, expands, and
And
then
tries to expand, pressed against another piece so it heaves.
saves, okay. And what about the skylights here? They're all covered up, but,
Originally, they were glass on the right side, and the light coming in was too much for today's Eno boards,
yeah,
and it was really hot in the cafeteria. So rather than eliminate them completely, we just boarded up and roofed over the glass side of the window.
right. And is there issues with the snow accumulation on these
Absolutely. When the
skylights?
snow builds up along the skylight, see the lead on the side?
Yeah,
The water goes right up in the lead and down into the cafeteria.
okay. One other
It happens
thing,
also all along the lead going around the building.
okay. So one other point I wanted to, or a couple of points from the vantage point. This is an HVAC,
That's the air conditioning units for the main office and health and
okay, and these equipment, how old are these?
the 97, those units went in.
So 27 years ago,
When the addition went on,
28
they,
years ago.
they
yeah.
were air
And so
conditioning.
these would need to be replaced along here as well, is that correct?
Correct. As well as those mechanical units.
Yeah. And one other piece, and it may be difficult for people to see this on the screen. You see the orange vents that stick out,
Yes, the hoods.
the hoods?
Yeah.
Okay, can you tell us what they are and,
They're the intakes for all the univents. Every univent has an intake to bring fresh air in. The problem I have with them is on a sunny day like today, that's metal. It's heating up right now. So on a warm day, and you still want to bring fresh air in, so you still have the fans running, it's sucking in, I've had it suck in 95, 100 degree air because of the metal hood. So you're not helping giving the fresh air, you're making the room even hotter than it
hotter
was.
than it is?
Yeah.
So you have to just shut it down.
Shut it down, and they open windows, and you hope for the best. But yes, they heat up extremely hot. In the summertime, when we clean, we get off this floor as fast as we can because it gets so hot up here.
Yeah. What's the internal temperature in this hallway?
In the
In the
summer, when we're
summer.
working, I've had it up to 100,
Jeez.
105.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just keep my guys down on those days. But yeah,
Yeah.
especially when the sun comes up. I get guys that come in at 2 o'clock in the
And
morning.
what about May or June, in the spring for students?
It can be December. When the sun is hitting these windows, this upstairs gets extremely warm. It can be 70, 80 degrees in December,
In December?
only where the sun is hitting.
Okay.
So usually the side of the building, veteran teachers try to stay on the inside of the horseshoe
Okay.
because of the sun.
All right. So Tom, tell us about this classroom. This is sort of a regular size classroom.
Yep, this is one of our on-team ELA teachers' classrooms. You can see that, with the chairs up, there's I think 26 or 27 chairs in here. So the largest class size might be around there, 25, 26. On average, a little smaller, but with the chairs down and students in the seats, of course, there's a lot less room in the square footage of this classroom. And also, like I was mentioning before, when we were talking previously about the difference in instructional strategies for teachers today, they're not standing up at a podium in front of the class delivering instruction. They're moving about the room, using the touch board, accessing materials in the back of the classroom, as you can see with the bookshelves, and just general checking in with student groups in the front, on the side, and the back. So having more space, of course, is going to make the educational experience better.
I mean, this is 600 square feet. We're in, I think the modern day, we talked earlier, the modern day requirement on this would be around 850 square feet. So it's a significant difference. All right, so Thomas, is this one of your typical labs?
Yep, this is an 8th grade on-team science lab. Similar to the ELA classroom we were in before, there might be around 20 to 24 students in this classroom setting over the course of the day. one teacher teaches in here. We've got enough resources to do the job, but as you can see, there's a outdated scenario. And the other science labs look very similar. So, we would be exploring the option of a more centralized lab with more up-to-date equipment and space to collab with other teachers.
So in these spaces today, I mean, if you, an up-to-date space, you have a separate lab and you may have a separate classroom for the classroom work, and then the class literally walks into the lab to do lab-only work, whereas this is sort of a combined space of two?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert with science instruction, but if you were at the high school, you might see, like you just referenced, a space where the students are receiving their daily instruction, and then when it's time to do a more robust hands-on experience, like a lab experience, then they may go to a more centralized location with better equipment, a safer environment, and a larger space to, like I said, collaborate with other teachers, or possibly introduce a cross-disciplinary scenario.
Don, what's going on with this hole in the wall?
There was a leak in the drain, and the only way to get to the pipe was to blast a hole through the concrete and put my smallest guy in there to plug the leak, to repair it. If I wanted to fit it in myself, obviously, I made it a little bit bigger. But, yeah, no, that's
So have
typical.
you
I've done
added,
this
you've done this
multiple times.
multiple
I
times?
don't want to say many, but I've got at least 5 or 6 times. In different places, in bathrooms,
Yeah,
especially, that's where most of the drainage is, so.
and these are just like pinhole leaks that have
Oh, this was the drain,
the drain itself?
the elbow cracked
Yeah,
of the drain. As I
Yeah.
told you, that black pipe is susceptible to crack.
yeah,
It cracked, so we had to take the elbow off, plug the vent pipe
yeah.
until we could get it fixed. That's why that drain plug is hanging there. We used it, they were done with it, they fixed it. But again, plumber has a heck of a time trying to work in those conditions.
So Don, what room are we in now?
In the music chorus room, it's a combination. And as you can see by the keyboards, they use a lot of electricity and Wi-Fi. We've had troubles in the past with power. We've then added power. We still have issues with the Wi-Fi, the amount of use. It's not capable of giving everyone the communication that it needs.
So this room, room needs to be renovated, more power, more Wi-Fi access.
Yeah, it's become more of a technical,
Yeah,
type of room versus a standard classroom. So more tech in here would be required, especially with today's.
and it's, in this building, built in 1950, was not built for all this type of equipment.
No. No, they sang in here and they played their instruments in the other music room.
Yeah.
So the chorus and the music room are the 2 rooms.